All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's 5 o'clock. This is the Carson City Consolidated Municipal District Planning Commission and Growth Management Commission meeting. Call the roll, please, for the Growth Management Commission.
For Growth Management, Chair Borders,
Present?
Vice Chair Wiggins, Commissioner Eswine, Commissioner Kilgore,
Here.
Commissioner Lord, Commissioner Perry, Commissioner Preston. The quorum's present.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The public is invited at this time to comment on and discuss any topic that is relevant to or within the authority of the Growth Management Commission, including any matter that is not specifically included on the agenda as an action item. Is there any comments from the public for growth management? Hearing none, we'll move forward to the approval of the minutes of July 28th, 2021. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Commissioner Lloyd?
I have a correction on item 5. I was not present, so it's correct that I was absent, but I did not vote yes. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other additions or corrections to the minutes? I have a motion to approve them. All right. There's a motion to approve the minutes as amended and a second. The motion was by Jay Wiggins, seconded by Commissioner Eswine. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 6A, discussion and possible action to consider regarding a request for growth management approval of a daily water usage above 15,000 gallons per day for a proposed drive-through car wash on property zoned retail commercial located at 3390 South Carson Street, APN 009-111-28.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hope Sullivan, Community Development Director. As the chair said, this is a request to utilize 46,000 gallons per day to accommodate car wash use at 3390 South Carson Street. Per Municipal Code 1812-070, the Board of Supervisors will annually determine the maximum daily water usage threshold for commercial and industrial building permits. That threshold is 12,000 gallons per day. In the event a commercial or industrial use exceeds the amount set by the board, the applicant must apply for the review and approval by the Growth Management Commission, so this commission. So since this request is in excess of 15,000 gallons per day, it is before this board or this commission prior to the issuance of a building permit. The commission may approve with conditions, or deny on the basis of effect. In considering the request, there are 6 things that the commission will consider. And this is in the staff report. I think it's on page 3 of the staff report. I also have it on the board. I don't have it maximized on the board. Sorry about that. There we go. The quantity of water consumed by the use for which the building is constructed compared to the availability of water, the ability of the city to deliver water service to the structure, other effects of water usage, the ability of the city's sewage disposal system to handle the quantity of wastewater generated, including the composition of the wastewater, the ability of the city's sewer system to carry the wastewater for treatment, and other effects of the wastewater disposal. Historically, in considering requests for growth management approval, the commission has limited its review to the technical ability of the city to deliver water services to the structure. The city can technically service this use at the water level requested, subject to the conditions of approval. I want to stop for a second and talk about the timeline on this project because I think it's important, and this is not in your staff report. On December 15, 2020, the applicant applied for what's called a major project review for a drive-through car wash with 36 vacuums at 3390 South Carson Street. On December 20th, 2020, the applicant received a letter as a follow-up to that major project review meeting advising that the project would be subject to growth management per Municipal Code 1812070. And the letter identified what the considerations would be when the commission considered the application. So those considerations were simply straight from the code. On April 15, 2021, the applicant applied for the growth management approval. On May 26, the Growth Management Commission reviewed its annual growth management report. You do that every May. So it just so happened that this application came in April, and you happened to be scheduled in May, like you're always scheduled in May, to take a look at the annual growth management numbers in the report. And you'll remember the report this year was a bit different in that we had the presentation from the water manager and the wastewater manager. In reviewing that, what the commission discussed was that policy that says that we're going to talk about the other effects of water usage. And at that meeting, we talked about the other effects of water usage and if there should be some policy level criteria to give the Growth Management Commission guidance when you consider requests. On May 26, you took no action because you did think there was value to having that policy level criteria. So we needed to renotice the item to include that you would be having that discussion. Also on May 26th, the car wash was actually going to be on the Growth Management Commission agenda, but at the request of the applicant, it was removed from that agenda. On June 30th, 2021, the Growth Management Commission, again, on May 26th, you didn't take an action. So on June 30th, this came back to you, and it included that criteria and the discussion about what criteria should be included at a policy level when you consider requests like this. And the Growth Management Commission did make a recommendation to the board that included criteria. On July 15th, the Board of Supervisors adopted Resolution 2021-R23, which included the criteria to apply when considering commercial or industrial uses for growth management requests. I want to stress that by virtue of being a resolution as opposed to an ordinance, this is a policy level document as opposed to an ordinance, which is a rule. Moving forward, on July 28th, the car wash was on the Growth Management Commission agenda, and at that time, the staff did have a recommendation of approval. When that staff report was completed, the board had not taken an action, and the staff wasn't aware at the time we completed that staff report whether or not the board would be inclined to include the criteria or not. That staff report did include that discussion, but the staff did recommend approval absent having the criteria. The staff did remove the car wash from that meeting agenda upon discovering that all the documents that were in your physical packet had not been made available to the public. On August 25th, which is today, the car wash is before the Growth Management Commission, and the staff has recommended denial. So that is a change from what the staff's recommendation was when this was on your agenda for July 28th. In the staff report, I talk about the water model, and this commission has heard about the water model, and I think you've seen examples of the water model, and there's certainly been discussed. The water model is used to determine the overall water demand in the city. In the analysis, the subject property did not have any existing water usage. So one might think it was vacant land, but actually there's a well on this site. And so because it hadn't been using water, it must have been using the on-site well. It was either that or the business was out of business, but there was no water usage assigned in the water model. The city also maintains a build-out forecast model, which is based on the master plan designation of. So this property is designated as mixed-use commercial. So based on that designation, the build-out forecast model anticipated a water demand of 4,800 to 5,800 gallons per day. So because we do this modeling, we talk about this modeling, I wanted to give the commission the benefit of understanding what the model, one, included as the baseline and also included as an anticipated use. Condition number 8 in the proposed condition, should you want to approve this, talks about abandonment of that well. The applicant has advised that they're not inclined to abandon the well, and they did not think they would agree to that condition of approval. Staff researched with the state what the requirements would be should the well remain, and based on that research is recommending a modification to condition number 8 that would read, as part of the building permit, the applicant must provide a written determination from the Nevada Division of Water Resources stating under what circumstances, if any, the well may remain in use, and/or if the well needs to be plugged per the requirements of NAC 534, including but not limited to NAC 534.427. So essentially, it's going to be a decision of the state engineer and not a decision of the city whether or not that well can remain. And if it does remain, how does it function? How is it policed? Actually, we want to go back to the municipal code. And I want to talk about those other effects of water usage. When we talked about the other effects of water usage about a month or two ago, we talked about the opportunity cost. The commission did recommend the criteria to the Board of Supervisors, and the Board of Supervisors adopted criteria via Resolution 2021 R23. And I'll go to that wording, and that's also in the staff report. This policy level criteria includes a requirement for water conservation measures and finding that the use will promote health, welfare, safety, or quality of life, or create quality jobs, or promote recreation and tourism. Per the resolution, the criteria that's in front of you per Resolution 2021 R23 applies to projects proposed in 2022. So this commission is not bound by this policy level criteria because when the board adopted it, it said it was considering everything for 2022 for the next calendar year. And again, if we go back to that timeline, this application actually came in for a major project review in December 2020. So I do want to be fair that I did discuss this policy level criteria in the staff report. However, this criteria did come in after this application. The two were quite intertwined, honestly, when you look at the timeline. The applicant was not aware at the time of major project review, nor was staff, in fact, in December 2020, that the Growth Management Commission would recommend policy level criteria or that the board would adopt it. So I think we need to be fair on that. The applicant has provided late material that does speak to this, but he also advises that this is aspirational as opposed to a requirement. I also think he might reference it as an ordinance. I want to be very clear, this is not an ordinance. This is not law. This is policy. But this commission is not bound by what's in Resolution 2021 R23 as that information the board put forward for applications that come in 2022. The applicant in his application in the late material talks about the concept of the redevelopment area. And the South Carson Street is a redevelopment area. And I want to mention this because I didn't really think about it. And I think it's worth noting that it is a major arterial. And historically, that property's actually been a blighted property for the city. It was the liquidator's property, and you may recall we had a lot of code enforcement issues there with a lot of storage on site, and in fact, they had their business license revoked. This stretch of South Carson Street is somewhat, I'll call, car-centric, in that there are a lot of dealerships and auto-related businesses on that stretch. So this is a tough one because of the timing. This commission, more so than ever in my 5-year tenure here in Carson City, is so focused on being really aware and responsible about how water is used, more so than in past years. So the fact that I really wanted to show you that timeline to see how everything kind of intersected. So I encourage this commission to look at those timelines. You're not bound by Resolution 2021 R23 as this application did not come in 2022. But you do need to consider those other effects of water usage. And the applicant and his representative, Michael Cabrera, will present on that. And with that, I will complete my presentation. Thank you.
Questions for staff?
This is Todd Reese, Deputy DA. I just wanted to clarify one thing for the record. I believe Hope misspoke in the beginning. She may have mentioned 12,000 gallons per day. I just wanted to make sure
It's
that
15. Yes.
state for the record that it's 15,000.
Your first comment was 12. Questions for staff? Hope, we got a lot of material that talks about the functionality of a car wash and all those kinds of things from the applicant, but I think it boils down, as far as the Growth Management Commission, at least on my opinion, is that it's got to be water usage. We're not here to talk about the sign. We're not here to talk about any building permits or anything else. We're here to talk about how this facility uses water and the estimated number of the amount of water that's being used. And in part of that criteria, I asked the staff to tell me, or to give me as a benchmark, the only other really busy business that I see on on Carson Street in that area, and that's Dutch Brothers. And I asked if you could find out what their kind of daily traffic was.
Right, we were able to talk to the owner of Dutch Brothers, and he advised that they're conducting 600 to 750 transactions a day. And that's the Dutch Brothers on Cochise.
Yeah.
And Mr. Reese, thank you for the correction. It is 15,000 gallons per day. I don't know where I came up with 12, so I apologize for that. And I have in front of you the municipal code, which advises how the commission, the criteria, if you will, that the commission will use from a regulatory perspective when you consider this application. And the chairman's correct. I have specifically included in the conditions of approval, should this be approved, that this approval is not an approval of the site plan, it's not an approval of the building elevations, it's not approval of anything except water use. Thank you.
And I asked you about Dutch Brothers not because I thought selling coffee was like washing cars, but I was trying to get fixed in my mind the volume that we're talking about. And using it seems like that particular retail business has cars lined up in it all day long. And if you take the late material that was provided to us by the applicant, his 46,000 gallons per day usage is based upon an average wash of 35 gallons per automobile, and that comes up to 1,316 vehicles a day that have to run through that car wash to justify the 46,000 gallons. That's a car about every 30 seconds in a 12-hour day. And I just find the concept of 120 cars an hour for every hour of every day a really large number. And that's why I wanted to try and get a concept from Dutch Brothers as to what their volume is. And it's pretty much half that. And so, having said that, commissioners, any other questions for staff before we get to the applicant? Nope. Okay. Who's going to speak for the applicant? Okay, Mr. Cabrera, would you like to come forward?
Thanks.
Okay.
Sorry, if you'll give me just a second to get my PowerPoint up here.
And if you feel safe, you may remove your mask so we can understand you.
Thank you, sir. Here we are. Okay, good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. My name is Michael Cabrera, representing Metro Car Wash with this application before you tonight.
Is your microphone on?
Yes, does it need it closer?
Yeah,
Sorry,
please.
I tend to speak a little softly, so I'll put the mic closer.
All
Okay, so first we wanted to provide you a quick background on the project, which you probably don't need, but just for the sake of the record here. The proposal calls for a state-of-the-art car wash facility that's going to be a leader in conservation of water and energy and will be based here in Carson City, really the first of its kind in northern Nevada. The project site is 3390 South Carson Street, which is APN 009-11128. The parcel has an approximate area of 1.53 acres. Its master plan designation is mixed-use commercial. Its zoning designation is retail commercial. And as Hope discussed, we went through a major project review in December of last year. Here are some photos of the pre-existing / former conditions of the site. I think you've heard quite a bit about that already. It is a property that had been blighted in the past, and we're looking forward to demolishing that structure and building something beautiful in its place. Here's a quick photo of the proposed facility as we envision it. You can see that there are 4 queue lanes and a single tunnel through the car wash. Here's the site plan, which shows the general, the site plan. You can see there the 4 lanes that queue up and the single tunnel, which has approximately 185 feet in length, I believe. It's 180.
sorry?
The tunnel has 180 to 185 feet in length.
Okay, thank you.
And then, so the ingress is there from South Carson Street. They'll go through the car wash, come back through, go through where the vacuums are located on the bottom of the screen there, which is to the west of the site, and then exit onto South Curry Street. To get back to South Carson Street, they would move south, cars would travel south to Moses Street, and then get back onto South Carson at I believe, a signalized intersection, lost my words. So a little bit more background on the project. Metro Car Wash is a family-owned business which was founded by Ernie Iono, here sitting next to me. Ernie has previously operated highly successful Metro Car Wash facilities in Reno and Sparks, and this proposed Carson City Car Wash is anticipated to achieve water usage as low as 32 gallons per vehicle, although for our purposes, we're estimating 35 gallons per vehicle just to play it safe. So the request before you tonight is for 46,000 gallons per day of daily water usage. We did a lot of work with your engineering staff to discuss the peak flow, and we've determined that average flow demand equals about 32 gallons per minute over a 24-hour period if it's broken out. The applicant has worked with staff over the past many months to ensure this request is reasonable and is something that can be provided by the city without any sort of substantial impact to the water supply. Staff alternatively is recommending conditions of approval to this entitlement to ensure that this project works for everyone. Initially, we had an issue with condition number 8 as it was written. It just said the applicant was required to abandon the well. The way that it's been revised tonight by Hope and the staff, we are okay with, and we'd be amenable to that condition if you decide to impose it on us. So I don't know that we need to go through the legal framework too much. I think that Hope adequately covered it and correctly covered it. That's the section of Carson City Municipal Code that sets forth the legal criteria with the 6 different items related to water consumption and the sanitary sewer system. So here we meet all of the statutory criteria. We believe that the request is reasonable and ultimately will be assisting Carson City in conservation of water resources, especially over the long term. The city's engineering staff, as I mentioned, has confirmed the city's ability to deliver this water service and carry the wastewater. So we know we meet these findings. The application also complies with the not yet effective criteria, the resolution that Hope was talking about. So, and I have referred to it as an ordinance, and that is incorrect. It is a resolution. It's policy and not law, so that's correct. So on the left there, you've got the quote from what the ordinance calls for, which is first and importantly, utilizes water conservation measures and techniques, and then also asks you to consider whether the use will promote health, welfare, safety, or quality of life, or create quality jobs, or promote recreation and tourism. So this car wash is going to be a significant conservation of water resources. It is anticipated to be the most efficient car wash in northern Nevada. In terms of promoting health, welfare, safety, and quality of life, this removes a vacant, unattractive property in South Carson redevelopment area. It ensures water conservation for the future, and it ensures that there will be a car wash option available to new and future growth in this area of South Carson. We'll be creating 12 to 15 quality jobs. It will promote recreation and tourism by, again, removing this blighted structure and putting a striking state-of-the-art car wash facility in the section of South Carson Street that's really all about cars. So we want to go into our math a little bit here. So our numbers are based off of the Nevada Department of Transportation's Trina application, which provides the traffic counts for this section of, well, for all over Nevada, but for this section of South Carson Street, it's 22,700 annual average daily traffic AADT for 2020. And after we put these numbers together, Hope indicated to me that those were COVID numbers, and perhaps better think about would have been 2019, but we've modeled after 2020. So our request is what it is, and if we, we're trying to serve this many cars with a higher traffic count, we might be more limited than we initially had thought, but that's okay. We're comfortable with this request. So we anticipate capturing approximately 5.8% of AADT, which amounts to roughly 16 vehicles per day. We kind of got the heads up about the Dutch Brothers question, and so we wanted to talk about that a little bit briefly. Unlike some of those popular chain drive-thrus that are, food and beverages, this is a car wash is obviously a different use than a restaurant or a coffee shop. So, the first thing that we would say is your line is your sign. And when you have a long line, that deters other customers from patronizing. So, of course, if Dutch Brothers can only do 750 vehicles a day, they're losing customers who are not getting in the line because the line is so long. And the car wash is designed and has the capacity to serve 3 cars per minute on that conveyorized system. The car wash, again, has 4 lanes for queuing and point of sales, and operates, again, on the conveyorized system. There's no additional wait time for service staff to prepare the food or beverages like you might see in a restaurant or coffee shop. And, another point is that the demand for the uses is not necessarily being met for Dutch Brothers or something like that. If there was another Dutch Brothers in the nearby vicinity, they would probably double their business. It's not a function of not being enough supply. So we think that at 35 gallons per vehicle, approximately 46,000 gallons per day is required. So this is a table that shows our projected water use and the Carson City water savings table. This breaks down by year, well, it breaks down by, let me just go through the table from left to right. So this assumes an average daily traffic count of those, 2020 numbers, of 22,700 cars average daily traffic count. Assuming the next column shows you the capture rate from 1.5% up to 7%. Then the next column is the average daily cars washed, what that would look like. Then you've got the static number of gallons used per wash. We assume 35 for the purpose of this model. And then what that looks like in terms of average gallons used per day. Then we estimate how much gallons are saved per home wash, and that's a very conservative estimate. Carson City itself says that, and we'll go through this in the presentation, that each home wash can use between 100 and 130. I think actually, sorry, they say 2 to 3 times what a professional car wash would do. We also have evidence from the Southwest Car Wash Association that says that a home car wash will use 100 to 130. So the savings really could be much more than 26 gallons per vehicle, but let's say that for a conservative estimate. And so then the next 2 columns show you what the gallons would be saved on a daily basis and on an annual basis, assuming that we're capturing that rate. So you can see that years 1, 3, and 5 are highlighted. Year 5 is our target. We think that, and that's the request that we've made, is for that amount. So we're just trying to be upfront here and say, we think that in 5 years, we will be able to capture 5.8% of the average daily traffic, and we would like to be entitled for that amount of water, especially considering that each car that goes through our car wash is saving water for the city. So then on this next slide here, this takes the left side of that table and pulls it over here, and then just kind of gives you an estimated breakdown of some of our some other car washes in the Reno, Sparks, and Carson City area. And it goes through, on the right side, the right column, it shows you the car wash name, where it's located, when it was built, the average daily usage we've obtained from publicly available sources, whether from the Truckee Meadows Water Authority in Reno and Sparks or from Carson City itself. Then we've looked at the traffic count for the area that those sites are located, and provided a sort of handicap that we think might apply to a site. For example, for the surf through in Carson City, they have their wash tunnel is perpendicular to the street. It kind of has difficult ingress and is not the most visible from the street. So you can see that the surf through in Reno is probably the most comparable to our site. That site has a currently daily average use of 26,100 gallons, and they're in year 2 of business. That traffic count there is comparable to this site. It has 25,900 cars per day, according to the Trina application. We don't handicap that site at all. It has great traffic visibility. It's parallel to the street, very similar to how our car wash will be set up. And we anticipate that they're on trajectory to do 40,000 average gallons per day by year 5. So we'd like to point out in the talking about water savings that Carson City's website indeed states that washing your car at home can use 2 to 3 times more water than a commercial car wash. So based on our proposal to utilize 35 gallons per vehicle, which is highly efficient, and most car washes use a lot more per vehicle, and Carson City's own water conservation tips, then a home wash would use up to 70 to 105 gallons more per vehicle than the car wash. Again, Southwest Car Wash Association indicates 100 to 130 gallons per vehicle. So this slide shows some images of some of the upcoming state-of-the-art technology that would be implemented in this site. Just to talk a little bit more about water savings, each vehicle washed at a professional car wash will thus save between 65 to 95 gallons per vehicle compared to home washing. Our target consumer is presently washing at home. We've broken down some of the math here based on those 65 to 95 gallons saved for each customer that may have otherwise washed at home. Per vehicle, again, 65 to 95. Per day, you're talking about 85,540 gallons to 120 gallons saved per day. Per year, we're talking 31.2 million to 45.6 million gallons of water saved, assuming that we can get those numbers, assuming that this request is approved. So here we've broken down some more of the numbers here. Based on our approximate capture of AADT, we've got that pie chart that shows the total amount of trips in this section of Carson Street at 22,700. Metro would be doing 1,316 this request, assuming we're approved. And we know from the competitor letter that you all received a month ago or so that they do 390 cars an hour, and that per day, which represents 1.7% of AADT. So the chart on the table on the bottom left shows that. We'd like to point out that there is one efficient professional conveyor car wash capturing 1.7% of AADT that exists today, which represents a savings of about 28,860 gallons per day in water savings. So assuming that we are able to meet our number and you approve this request, our water savings would again be 85,540. Then we would just like to point out that the overwhelming majority of Carson City motoring public likely is washing in the driveway at home using hundreds of thousands of gallons per day. And that is why, that contributes to why residential uses use so much water. So we also broken down in this table here how much, just based off of this number, based off of the 22,700, which obviously we're not going to capture, 50% of all traffic driving down South Carson Street any given day. But if we did, we're talking about 1 million gallons of water saved in a single day. And that table breaks down, if we capture 5%, if we capture 10%, if we capture 15, yeah. And
hello, I'm Ernie Iono. I think what that chart is representing is the overwhelming majority in the chart represented by the gray. Those people are washing their cars somewhere because the Sierra Car Wash washes 1.72%. We hope to wash 5.8%, but the other 90 some odd percent, they're washing their cars somewhere. And what we're saying is if 5% of the 22,000 cars a day not using a professional efficient car wash washed at home, they're using 100,000 gallons a day. Or if 10% of the people that don't use either option, the Sierra Car Wash, our car wash, what percent are they washing, so that, it's not that we're going to capture that. So I wanted to
Great.
clarify.
Turn your mic off. Thank you. And Michael Cabrera for the record. So just continue to power through this. So this is going to be a closed system. It's going to be a brand-new state-of-the-art facility which will return nearly all water to Carson City for adaptive reuse. Its modern car wash equipment, water reclamation system, and advanced production line control technology are anticipated to reduce freshwater consumption by 10 to 15%. Assuming that every car wash at the new Metro Car Wash would have used home washes or in-bay automatics, Carson City will actually realize and accrue a net gain of water saved with every car wash at Metro. So let's compare to other washes. You've heard about our site, brand new state-of-the-art, anticipate 32 to 36 gallons per vehicle. Peak hours of demand are probably they will be between 9 and 5. We put that in here because working with your engineering staff, one of their concerns was that they would not be able to provide the water if our peak hours were the same as as the city's peak hours. And they've indicated that the peak hours for the city are something closer to 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. So we should be good there. And that's what staff indicated to us. So home washing, you've heard it. In-bay automatic washes, which are the types of car washes that you might see at some gas stations, can use between 75 to 150 gallons per vehicle. These are the two Metro car wash sites that were previously owned and operated, by Metro. They're not Metro sites anymore. The former Reno site was built in 1999. Metro acquired it in 2005, performed extensive remodeling and reconditioning. It became the highest volume car wash in northern Nevada by 2008. It achieved an average of 40 gallons per vehicle. The former Spark site was built in 1987. It was acquired by Metro in 2008. They also performed extensive repairs, reconditionings, needed upgrades, and implemented best practices, and eventually achieved an average 45 gallons per vehicle. So we think that this car wash will meet the requirement to promote health, welfare, safety, and quality of life by providing extensive water conservation and recycling, which will assist the city in protecting and conserving this natural resource. Conserving and recycling the water supply will provide great benefit to the long-term overall welfare of Carson City residents by assisting in longevity of water resources. Again, this removes a vacant, unattractive property in South Carson redevelopment area. The new condition will have vehicles exit onto Curry Street, avoiding oncoming traffic on South Carson Street. It ensures water conservation, car wash options available to new and future growth. This is an underserved area of Carson City in terms of professional car washes. There's only, about 1% of AADT being captured in a professional car wash in this area. So, we know that clean cars are safe cars. In terms of quality jobs, Metro is going to be a new locally owned and operated employer in Carson City. We're not some big outside developer or, big car wash company coming in from out of state. This is a local operation. We plan to create 12 to 15 brand new jobs here in South Carson Street. Those jobs will include professional management and maintenance positions, high quality first jobs for young people, recovery jobs after a setback, and production jobs. We've put in here a breakdown of our anticipated budgeted payroll, which we anticipate to be about $627,100 in new local jobs. We also wanted to point out that Metro has a proud history of community service and that this is something that we think that you should take into consideration when approving this request. Metro donated over 10,000 car washes to nurses during National Nurses Week prior to the pandemic, prior to, all the focus on first responders and nurses and doctors. This has been a long-term priority for Metro Car Wash, and they've put their money where their mouth is. Additionally, they've proudly honored veterans, active service members, first responders, and their families with free car washes on Veterans Day as a part of the Grace for Vets program. Metro Car Wash also routinely offers reduced price car washes to the government fleet vehicles, including police and fire. And that would be something that we would be happy to do in Carson City. As a family-run business, Metro also has a long and proud tradition of partnering with area high schools to gift car washes to local high schools for safe and sober nights and other events. Metro plans to provide Carson City schools with charity car washes to assist in raising money for various school activities. Schools would keep 50% of proceeds in support of their causes. In doing so, the schools would raise more money, the city saves more water, and the water is not lost to storm drains that would happen if they were washing cars in the high school parking lot. And, just as a personal aside, I am local. I went to high school in Reno, and when I was at Wooster High School, I know that Metro Car Wash donated tons of car washes to our jazz band, so that way we would be able to raise money for our trips and for our uniforms and things. So I know that this is someone who puts his money where his mouth is. So we'd like to talk about the project investment a little bit. This is a project that we anticipate investing $8.2 million in here in Carson City. There's a breakdown there of our cost estimates. You can also see on the top right corner, the site plan is again depicted, and there's a rendering of the site. So to summarize, we believe that the request for 46,000 gallons per day is reasonable, reflects a solid investment for Carson City to prevent wasteful home washes, saving 2 to 3 times the water. It meets all the requirements of statute. It's highly efficient conservation of water. This meets all framework of the 2022 ordinance, or resolution, despite not being legally applicable to this project. It's a redevelopment of a vacant eyesore property on South Carson's commercial corridor. This section of town is underserved by professional car washes. It's going to create quality jobs, and it's a local investment with revenues that stay local. We're eager and excited to be here in Carson City. We want to thank you for your attention, for your service on this board. Special thank you to the staff. They've been so helpful to us through the major project review, through all of this process, making sure that this was something that was feasible. We wouldn't be here if we didn't think it was feasible. So we request that you approve this request for 46,000 gallons per day on this site. And, one last thing I'd like to mention is that, I realize that this isn't something ordinary, but to the extent that you may consider Ernie an expert in car washes and in this industry, I mean, this is truly someone who is an expert in the industry, and what he has to say about car washing and water conservation, I think you should take as the opinion of an expert. So we'd be happy to take any questions that you may have.
The 8 conditions that were provided by staff with the amendment to number 8 are acceptable?
Yes, we're comfortable with all of the conditions. We worked with staff. I mean, that was why we postponed one of the 3 times that we were continued, was to get together with staff and make sure that we could get to a reasonable compromise. And we worked very closely with your engineering staff to ensure that this was something that was feasible and that the conditions would work for us.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant? Mr. Perry?
Yes, thank you for your presentation. That was very well done. I learned more about car washes than I've ever known through this process the last couple of months.
Me too.
But I did have a couple. Why? And I think you explained this, but one of the things that we looked at was what is the average water use for the existing car washes in Carson City, and I think the city staff gave us a number of at a peak, one of them is slightly below 15,000 gallons per minute. So one of my questions was going to be, why does your car wash use need 3 times more water per day than the highest car wash that there is there in the city that's doing this type of car washing today?
Thank you, Commissioner Perry. And for the record, Michael Cabrera. I'll probably defer to Ernie, and he could give a much more nuanced answer. But ultimately, we think that it may just be a different business model, how they run the cars through, how much water they use in terms of washing the car. We want to provide a very clean and efficient car wash, and we think that this is the right number. So, Ernie, if you want to add.
I think that they are right in line with what we use per car. I would guess they're using 35 gallons per car, and we're requesting 3 to 4 times more because I sincerely believe we'll wash 3 to 4 times more cars than they are. And that was their first car wash they built. Again, it's handicapped, it's perpendicular to the street, it's not seen very well. The second car wash they built was in Reno on South Meadows Parkway. It has, and maybe we can go to that. They're using approximately, how many gallons a day, Michael, surf through number 2? They're using approximately 21,000 gallons a day. They're just washing more cars. And their highest volume location on Pyramid Highway, most similar to what we're building, uses nearly 27,000 gallons a day. And in that 35 gallons a car, they're probably 850 trips a day on average, a daily average. And that's in their second year of operation. I think we have a better location. Their tunnel's like 135 feet long. Ours is 185 feet long. One of the things that keeps people going through car washes, it's kind of claustrophobic, it's narrow. Our tunnel width is 30 feet wide. The water won't even touch the walls, it's so wide, and full of windows. It's very inviting. It's dynamically located, tremendous visibility. The pyramid site, you're almost passing it when you first see it. You see the Carson site from a much further distance as you approach, and the pyramid location has far more competition. I could think of several car washes right in, the immediate area in Sparks. So we just think we're going to do even better than that. And they're on a 5-year trajectory to do somewhere in the 40,000 gallons a day. And we just think we're going to do better than that. And our car wash my former car wash, and we provided this to the commission, in July of 2020, we washed 25,157 cars, and we averaged 838 cars per day. And so, Michael, if you can do 838 times 35 gallons, that would be, sorry.
Yeah, it's
I
pretty
think
close.
I think you answered my question.
Did I?
Basically, what you told me is you're planning on washing 3 times more cars than the existing highest volume.
And it's very
car wash.
feasible.
Okay. So I have a couple of other questions because, and I'll explain, as I go. I mean, you have several car washes in Reno.
Not anymore, but
Not anymore. Okay. But when you did permit those, you went to, and obviously this is different because in Carson City, the municipality is the water purveyor. In Reno, the water purveyor is Truckee Meadows Water Authority. And I don't know if you read through our growth management plan when we approved it and sent it to the commission for approval here a while back. But as I recall, we as a municipality have about 18,000 acre feet of water rights, and we're using around 10,000 of those now. And our growth management plan is limited by year, really because of water. Because when we have a limited amount of water, and when we achieve that, we're at 86,000 people, and there can be no more growth. So 51.5 acre feet of water is a lot of water. It's almost 1% of the remaining water right that we have left in the city. And I'm sure that's a different view of it than what you had to deal with in Reno, because in Reno, and I don't know if you had to do this, but any developer in Reno has to go acquire a water right and deed it to the Truckee Meadows Water Authority. So it's very different down here. We don't ask for that.
So to answer that, those were leased properties. I didn't develop anything in Reno or Sparks. This is my first time doing something like this. I'm hoping, and the way I view it, this isn't 46,000 gallons a day of new use. We're targeting the home washer and the 93% of the cars that go up and down Carson Street, because people love their cars. It's an extension of their personality, and they wash their cars. And if they're not going to the raceway, and if they're not coming to Metro or Surf Through, they're washing their car at home. But the vast majority of the people wash their cars. Some don't, but nearly all do. And I would see this as a redistribution of water that's going down the driveway or going down the storm drains and being washed in the driveway. We want that water. It's not new use. We want to use that water, and most of it will go back to the city, and we want a piece of that.
I understand your logic there, but Mr. Carrera said the magic word early on. He said entitlement.
right.
Because water and water rights are an entitlement, and once we commit this to somebody, it's gone. We have to then, the engineering staff has to keep it in their book saying, you can go up to 46,000 gallons. Therefore, you probably saw it in here, there's the equivalent of 108 less single-family dwellings that could be built and so forth like that. So, I mean, I think that I'm just trying to explain a little bit and ask some questions. So my next question is one that probably is a little more on the technical side. And I'm going to admit, I worked for the state engineer for 7 years, so I understand the game there. The well that you have on this property, does it have water rights on it?
We are not aware of any water rights on it, so that's why we wanted to not have the condition go through as it was originally written, because we wanted to take the time to research that and find out what actually is there.
I'm surprised there's a well there because, if you're serviced by a water purveyor, you can't have a well on your property. But if it's an old well and it has, 20 acre feet of water right on it, sitting there still, then maybe there's some wheeling and dealing that could be done here, to make this a little better. I don't know. I'm thinking out loud here,
We
so
think
I
the
better
same.
shut up.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that was our thinking too. And, just to go back to your first question, the way that I think about this, if I were in your seat, would be how do we want to invest that water, our limited resource? And this is something that is ultimately a good thing for a city when you're talking about water conservation, because you are encouraging your citizens to go and get their car wash at a professional car wash where they will ultimately be saving water rather than having them do it at home, where it's, maybe cheaper for them, but ultimately a lot more wasteful for the city. And this is something that, is a long-term positive growth investment for Carson City, is in my view.
Commissioner Lloyd?
Okay, thank you for presenting the information that you have, Commissioner Lloyd, for the record. I just have two questions. My first question is just more, I'd like to understand this a little bit more. So you had pulled up a slide where your old car washes ran about 40 gallons per vehicle and 45 gallons per vehicle. And in the late material you introduced, you said it would be about 35 gallons per vehicle. In the letter we received from the neighboring car wash, it says it's about 26 gallons per vehicle. But you're saying this is a state-of-the-art car wash. So I'm trying to understand why a state-of-the-art car wash would actually use more water instead of less water.
Well, I don't think any experienced car wash operator would be surprised that during a record month, and that's, first of all, I haven't seen any substantiation or support for those numbers. They were just stated numbers and stated use. We provided water bills, sewer bills, and substantiation. But it's not surprising that a car wash during a record month would use less water, because a car wash is just like a treadmill has a speed control, so does a car wash. And you have to speed up to keep up. And anyone who's gone through a professional car wash knows and sees when the bumper gets to the rinse turns on. When the rear bumper gets, it turns off. And if you're going twice as fast, the dwell time or the gate time is 50% as well. So you'll use less water because you're just running the machine faster. That wouldn't happen in our situation because our tunnel is twice as long, so we could wash twice as many cars without ever adjusting the speed. That's just one example of how a car wash would use below average, industry average numbers. But the Southwest Car Wash Association and the International Car Wash Association report that 35 gallons per vehicle is about the leanest efficiency in a conveyorized car wash. It is the right number and is the correct number to do a great job. I don't know how you can wash a pickup truck and an SUV that are filthy from either ash or salt and sand with 5 pails of water. We can do a good job. I mean, you could use less water too, but that doesn't mean it's a great job that keeps people coming back. And if you have a record month, just like a dishwasher machine, a modern HE dishwasher machine uses 4.2 gallons per wash. If you were very busy and you had to wash a whole lot of dishes and you ran it on the express cycle, you would use less water. You could maybe, 25% less water. But the dishes aren't going to come out as clean. You're probably going to have to rewash some dishes. And you want to keep customers coming back with a clean, shiny, dry car. I don't know how they do 26 gallons per car. I tried to, speculate on some reasons why, but 35 gallons per vehicle is a very solid, efficient, realistic number.
Thank you for your answer.
Thank you.
My next question is, you've spoken a lot in your presentation and in a lot of the materials you provided that you are a locally owned and operated employer in Carson City. Does that mean you live in Carson City?
Actually, formerly I was a local owner-operator in Reno and Sparks, my Metro car washes. I sold my operations, and I'm relocating to Carson City. I mean, we own commercial property, but I've not purchased a home or anything like that yet.
Thank you.
Commissioner Preston? I'm sorry, were you finished? Okay, Commissioner Preston?
Hi. Hey, wanted to thank you first for picking up that piece of property because I do agree it's blighted and I do realize it's in the redevelopment. But I'm gonna have to tell you, I really have a hard time wrapping my head around 51 plus acre feet of water. And one of the reasons, there's a couple of different things here, is that, I understand your analytics talking about people that wash at home, versus car wash people. I have 3 vehicles. My van will not go through an automatic car wash because of the aftermarket. My SUV cannot go because of an aftermarket. And my truck can't go through an aftermarket. But my little car, I used to wash that maybe 4 times a year at my house, but then Surf Through came through. So I do that, and I figure out probably 26 times a year now I'm doing that. So I've actually increased my water volume going through car washes than I was doing it in my house. So, I mean, that's kind of, I love analytics, but I looked at that and went, it doesn't work for me. I'm the square hole. So anyway, the question that I have is that I was looking at your analytics on the Surf Through in Reno. That just was opened up in 2019, and currently it runs probably about 21K as far as gallons per day. They don't anticipate a use of 40,000 gallons until 2024. So I was looking at that, and you're looking at 46,000 gallons now, and I figured that if you've got the new whiz-bang place, I'm going to probably not go to the surf place, and I'm going to come to your place, right? So, okay, we're going to probably, let's say we divide them up. But there's only so many cars in Carson City. There's only so many cars at Incline. There's only so many cars that go down the road. So, the 900 cars per day is pretty, I wish you could do it, and I wish you well with it, but I don't see 900 cars in Carson. My concern is giving you that allocation. Now, would you even consider doing steps and saying, okay, we open the car wash and we are going to allocate 20,000, gallons per day, and then come back here and say, okay, great, we did do 900 cars a day, and therefore we do need the 46,000. Because, like I said, 50 houses could be built. Single-family houses could be built with your allocation. So I find that disconcerting because I am in real estate, and right now we don't have a lot of supply. So, and that's something we need in this community. The other question I have for you is, let's say you do the 46,000 gallons. Is it going in a tight line out into our sewer system to be processed? Or is it being recycled on site? And if so, how many gallons are being recycled on site?
So, Michael Cabrera for the record. So my understanding as far as the recycling goes is that would all be recaptured by the city through the sewer line.
So it's going through our sewer systems, to our pipes, to our plant, to go back out, and what, are we going to be using it for just recharge, or are we going to be putting it out into the golf courses or whatever? I mean, this is where I want to know how this is going to go. If it's just going to be 51 acres of feet of water to wash cars, I mean, it's difficult to wrap my head around. It really is. And so I would ask, would you consider, an aggregate?
So the challenge I see with that is this project will require financing. I purchased the land outright. It's an $8.2 million project. It's going to require approximately $6 million of financing. And I don't see where a bank is going to loan the money when the model showing to repay it is not in the bank, like conditional. So that's my concern.
And as to the other questions regarding the reuse and for golf courses and such, I mean, we would imagine golf courses, but I think we'd have to defer to your engineering staff about how the water would be reused specifically. 'Cause
Any other comments? I have one. I have one more. You know, we're talking about this is a good investment because we're going to save money from people washing cars in their driveway. That's the bottom line. We're saying we'll use 46,000, but enough people will come and use that 46,000 that we're going to save. We're going to have a net savings in the future. And when, like you said, when you talk to the engineering department, they said their highest use time is between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. Well, that's people watering their lawn, not washing their cars. So and if you look at through the Carson City growth management and water usage throughout the year, and the engineering staff will tell you this, that most of our water is used primarily to water grass. So it's a smaller piece of the pie in actuality that we're talking about, and you all are using a bigger chunk. And I have a hard time seeing us convincing people to stop washing their toys. And, you know, my little Thunderbird, I'm not going to bring down there. I'm going to wash it in my driveway in 2 buckets of water. But I think you have a sales problem trying to say that we're going to bring all these people in and save all this money. And then, like I said earlier, you know, a car every 30 seconds for a 12-hour day, for 24 hours a day, or for 12 hours a day, for 350 days a year, a car every 30 seconds. Now, that gets you 1,316 vehicles. And the only reason that I selected the Dutch Brothers was not in a comparison of retail, but just people on this panel and the people in Carson City understand what the volume of cars looks like at Dutch Brothers. And I'm trying to take that volume and then double it and put it in your facility, and I just have a hard time doing that. That's all.
And I can totally appreciate that, but, you know, again, we've got the 4 different lines to queue up, and so we'd be able to move them through a lot quicker than you would see at, like, you know, the 750 cars that you might see at Dutch Brothers.
Commissioner Lloyd?
Just a real quick search. I looked at a competitor in town's car wash that we have not mentioned today as the neighbor. And it says that they reclaim and reuse water. Will you be reclaiming and reusing? I just want to confirm.
Absolutely.
So how will you be reclaiming the water for reuse?
There's sophisticated, I'm not an engineer, but part of our equipment package includes a reclamation system that cleans, filters. You can't use reclaimed water to rinse the car. It would spot. But you can use it to blast wheels, underflush for undercarriage during salt and sand season. There's certain applications through the wash that we will be capturing our discharge water before it goes to the final sewer pipe and reuse that and readapt that and certain applications of rewashing the car. Therefore, only needing like 35 gallons as opposed to 40, 45, 50 gallons per car.
So how many gallons do you think that would save in a day?
I anticipate 50%. We're really going to be using 70 gallons to wash the car. 35 gallons of fresh water, 35 gallons of reclaimed water.
Okay.
Thank you.
Fair. Any other questions? Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Are there any comments from the public? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Jim Cavilla from Allison McKenzie on behalf of Raceway Car Wash. And I'll be very brief because most of what I have to say was in my correspondence prior to the continued meeting from last time. As I state in that letter, Raceway Car Wash runs 37 car washes across the western United States. One of those car washes is Sierra Car Wash on South Carson Street. They've operated that facility since 2016. I believe that facility's been operated, as most of you know, for more than 20 years by somebody. With me today is Dan Barraza, who's the regional manager for Raceway Car Wash. So with respect to specifics and details, he could testify to that in terms of the water usage. Chairman Borders, I think you stated earlier what this is about, what this issue is about, and what this ordinance is about water use and about conservation. And you're sitting here as the Growth Management Commission, not as the Planning Commission. And the question is before you is this a good use of Carson City's, limited resource and most important resource, water? And is this an appropriate use for this sort of extra amount of water for a car wash? As I stated in my letter, Sierra Car Wash has operated very successfully for the last 20 years. Its busiest month was June of this year, when it washed 11,700 cars, about 300 cars a day. And you've heard so many numbers, I'm sure this is just going to go right to you. And they used 10,400 gallons per day for that month. I just don't understand how you were going to allow somebody to use 4 times that amount of money to run the same business on the same piece. I mean, they're 200 yards apart or something like that. Why 4 times as much water to run the same kind of business? We made it clear this business can be run successfully at way under 15,000 gallons per day. So I guess that's the bottom line for us. There was some comment, I think, in the correspondence and some today about that implication that Sierra Car Wash doesn't do a good job washing cars because we don't use enough water or something to that effect. It's been there for 20 plus years. I think the market says it's a pretty good car wash. It's been pretty successful. So again, not this commission's decision to decide what's a good car wash and a bad car wash. It's your decision to decide how Carson City uses its water and what's appropriate. So again, your job is to protect the city's resources, and so if you have any questions of us, I'm happy to help answer them and get Dan up here if you need him.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I work in a law office in Reno. My name is Mark Ray.
Please make sure you're identified.
Mark Ray,
Thank you.
W-R-A-Y. My office is at 608 Lander Street in Reno. I'm also a resident of Reno, and I have been to the Metro Car Wash that existed at Longley Lane until it was sold to the company that Mr. Caviglia represents. And they're washing more cars than ever. I don't know if you knew that. More water being used because more cars are being washed. You're talking to someone who's been to Metro Car Wash in the lines going in. And there are no lines because what happens is you come in to answer your question, Mr. Chairman, about how can there be cars every 30 seconds. I've been in those cars. It's actually a treat to go to this car wash. It's the best car wash. When you approve this project for this site, for Ernie Iona to build a car wash, you have the best car wash in Northern Nevada, bar none. It will not be like the car wash that Mr. Caviglia represents at all. It's a different class. Mr. Iona is an expert in this. I go to his car wash. There's a crew there. I want to have you think about the people that work at In-N-Out, the crew that works there, and imagine that crew at a car wash. That's what it's like when you go there. It's a pleasure to go there. There's a grade, you can pay $5 or $10, $15 for your car wash. I generally pick the higher numbers, so they do a great job. But what Ernie is not telling you is, when other car washes, including the car washes that are called Raceway or whatever the other ones, come to you or come to some city and say, your restrictions are this many gallons, yeah, that's fine. They know it costs more if they wash more cars, so it's going to take more water. But Ernie Iono comes to you folks and says to you, the car wash that I'm going to do in 5 years, I'm going to be doing 1,316 cars. If Ernie Iono says he's going to do it, he's going to do it. That's what it's like at the Metro Car Wash. There's people there all the time when I go there. But I don't have to wait because I go through The cars go literally, like you say, every 30 seconds, sir. That is exactly what happens. And I do it myself. But Ernie comes to you and says, we're going to use this much water. I'm not going to tell you we're going to use less. And ma'am, I totally understand, Ms. Preston, what you're saying. Well, you're not using it now. You're not using anything. So why don't we just approve it as you go? And what Mr. Iono said is, I'm putting $8 million into this. Only $2 million of it is my own money. The other 6 is financed. And you have to be able to show your lender that you have the allocation of water necessary to grow to where you're going to be washing that many cars. But trust me, if you approve this, this will be a landmark that people will come back to and come back to and come back to, just like they did at Metro Car Wash. Since Mr. Iono has left and sold his business in Reno, I now have to go to this other the lower level car washes that we're talking about here. And it's a completely horrible experience. I don't know how to describe it. But trust me when I tell you, you'll have the best. Better than Reno, better than Douglas. You're going to take and make a showplace out of this property if you allow it to happen. And it's the repeat business, sir. It is the repeat business that makes it happen. Every time someone goes to Ernie's Car Wash, they see the difference and they want to keep coming back. So I just want to put that out for you. Yes, I'm the attorney, and I do represent Ernie's businesses. Because of him, and because of his early car wash at Freeway Car Wash, and because of Metro, and because of the one in Sparks, I have a completely different, you guys are having trouble grasping where he's coming from. I don't, because I see it. I saw what it was like in Metro. Has anyone been to Metro Car Wash in Reno? Has anyone seen what it's like compared to the places that you've been elsewhere? I'm asking you to think about that when you make your decision and take an opportunity to take this piece of property and make it a showplace. You'll have the best.
Any further discussion from, yes, sir.
Hello, Mr. Chairman. My name's Curtis Coulter. How are you today?
Fine.
Thank you. Thank you all for your time. I live in Reno, Nevada, and some years ago I had an opportunity to meet Ernie Iono. He did not ask me to be here. I asked him if I could be here. And I did because I had an experience, and you heard a little bit about this, people washing their car at home. I was one of those people. I washed my car at home. I tried to do it every month because it just always got dirty. I washed it and washed it. One day I didn't have enough time, and I went to one of his car washes. I didn't know Ernie Iono. I went in and got the car washed, and I said thank you, and I started talking to him. And I told him, I said, I don't generally come to these places because I think they waste water. And growing up in Nevada my entire life, I just thought car washes were an incredible waste of water. I always was sensitive to the fact when I was washing my car that the water was going down the gutter, and I thought, well, it'll get back in the ground somewhere. And Ernie told me something. He said, what you don't know what we do in this car wash is we reclaim this water and we take it from the rinse side and put it back to wash your car on the dirty side, and then it goes into the city, and that's what gets the golf courses all wet and watered and the green belts along the pathways. And I thought, okay, that was pretty good. Then he told me that it actually uses more water washing it yourself. I'm not washing my car every quarter. I'd wash it at least once a month, sometimes more, and especially with the ash, I try to get all that nasty chemical stuff off. So I can tell you that the difference that I saw in the amount of water that I used and based on what he told me made a lot of sense. I was bothered with one thing, though. I said, so all the grease that I put out when I washed the crud off my car, I said, all of that stuff goes to your car wash and it goes down the drain. He says, no. We've got a recycling system, a separator that takes all of that out. And I said, well, surely your chemicals and your soaps and all that stuff are toxic. He says, no, everything we use in our car wash is biodegradable. And it really changed my mind in the way I viewed those types of car washes. That changed it, and I haven't washed my car at home since that conversation, which occurred on one day and continued as I met him working at that car wash. He wasn't one of those guys that lives out of state. He was the guy who was sitting there with the wand and greeting the people. So I can tell you from my view of it, I think it was really a good idea. And Chairman Perry had a great idea. I don't know anything about your business, but your comment about what's going on with that well on that property, if he can pump enough water out of that well and not use the city water, maybe that's a win for everybody. Maybe you get an opportunity to take a blighted property out. And I've been up and down Carson for 30, 40 years. That's a pretty, I always try to stay away from that area. But I thought, maybe there's a win-win that you suggested on that. I don't know what that well is. I don't know that business. I'm not an engineer. But I thought, gee whiz, there's a sense that I see, and that is, we're not going to do it because it's going to take too much water. I don't know what the logistics are and how many people go wash it. But maybe there's a win-win, and you can take care of a blighted property. You can have somebody bring some jobs in and some opportunity. And maybe there's an opportunity to get some of the water out of that well, give it to the city. I don't know. But I think it's a good project, and I will tell you, Ernie Ione knows what he's doing, and it changed my view of car washes. And I really appreciate all the time that you guys take coming here, missing your dinner. It's a tough job, and thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Commissioner Preston, you have something?
I have a question of the applicant. I'm going back through your material, and the thing is this gentleman just made a statement. He says, has anybody been to the Metro over off of Longley? I happened to be there yesterday. So my question is I don't see their numbers in here.
They're referred to as Raceway Number 1 because Raceway purchased those car washes.
Okay, so Raceway Number 1, sit here and read this darn thing. Raceway Number 1, all right, was done in 2006, and the average gallons are 39,000
Per day. Per day.
Okay. All right. And you're doing it doesn't show how many cars, but the traffic count is 54,500. So that's like twice as much as Carson Street or more.
It's 34,000. And that's an estimate because there's 3 streets. There's Peckham. It's on a corner, the hard corner of Peckham and Longley, and then there's McCarran.
Right.
So it's an estimate.
Okay. Okay, but it still is considerably less. And that one was built in 2006.
It was built in 1999.
It shows.
I acquired it in 2006.
Okay, it just says circa, that it was built circa, and in your stuff, it says 2006. So
It
that's,
was built in 99 and mostly vacant from 99 to 2006. It had a revolving door of,
okay, I'm just looking at
sure.
your stuff. So, okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Yes, sir. Mr. Wiggins.
This is a good one for us. I have to tell you, I went back and forth on what I would, especially after all the comments today. So I just have one question for staff, and we keep going to the size of this 46,000 gallons per day. And I guess I can't wrap my head around this because he's not going to do that every single day of the year that's out there. And that's ultimately what we're talking about, is how much water is he going to take out in a given year? How is it going to deplete our water resources? He obviously is going to have peak days in June and July, but I'm going to guess that in December when it's snowing, he's not going to do very many car washes. So the fact that we have to wrap our heads around per day for a business that's very cyclical, and then I don't know if I have a comment to this. I just wish there was a way we could quantify that, or if maybe the staff could explain how they look at this from a day perspective as opposed to how much water is he really taking out of our resources.
So, Stephen Pote, development engineer for the record. From the impact to the city system, the way staff's looking at it, actually the peak flow is probably the most significant factor. So that's, if you look at the conditions of approval, we're very specific about making sure that was part of how this is being looked at. So I don't know that, looking at the overall all year, how much that decreases the number is probably not the most significant factor.
So fundamentally, if he used 46,000 gallons per day for the entire year, would staff be concerned?
Oh, we got the big guns now.
Here. So I'll go back to just why I'm framing this up. And it's really because the recommendation from staff is to deny based on things that aren't really directly related to this whole water issue. So I just want to understand, everyone's framing this as water, but staff's only denying it because of these other conditions, so.
Yes, I'll start off. Dan Sucky, Deputy Public Works Director for the record. I've got Tom Grundy, our Water Operations Supervisor, here as well. Public Works, what we're looking at, the number, yes, to answer your question, if they did 46,000 gallons per day, we can supply that water to them. We also look, and as Stephen Pote was referencing too, we do look at peaking throughout the day because that is the biggest impact on our system, and we wrote a condition specific to that to understand what their peaking rates are going to be throughout a typical day, because we need to know that. So we did work countless times with the applicant. We really appreciate that process. But that's how we look at it on their side. I did want to, while I'm up here, answer Commissioner Preston's question. I think she referred to the kind of the impact on the sewage system and effluent and our wastewater treatment plant, everything that essentially goes into the drain. I'm not super familiar with their operations, their recycling process, but essentially anything that gets to our sewer system goes to our plant. It's treated, it's pumped up to Brunswick Reservoir where it's stored until it can be returned and used on our golf courses and prison farm area and other uses that are on our effluent system. So that is the process for kind of that return to sewer flows that the car wash would be generating. Did that answer your question, Commissioner Wiggins, as far as kind of how we look at it? I mean, to 46,000 gallons per day, that's what we're saying. We can supply that throughout a typical day.
One more question related to that. Should there be a condition like that at some point that says 46,000 gallons per day, not to exceed X amount per month, per year, in staff's opinion?
I'd have to look at the condition, but I believe we structured condition number 3 to be able to evaluate, is it condition 3? Condition 2 and 3, sorry, condition 3, we are able to reevaluate at 3 years, not only the average gallons per day, but also peak flow to make sure that, because those connection fees for development are based off their assumed peak flow that they're going to use. So it's a way that we have opportunity to check to make sure that what they assumed they're actually using once the development is built.
If I may add a couple things. The average daily water usage threshold, it's coming directly out of our code. So I hear that other people are identifying other measures. So, and I put up on the screen Municipal Code 1812-070, which is law. That's a rule. That's not a policy. That's in effect. And it talks about the other effects of water usage. It says 6 different things. So this was actually, in looking at this, there was the question, is it technically feasible to serve this site with the water that they're requiring, or requesting, I should say? And you heard Mr. Cabrera talk about his working with Public Works. He asked for a continuation because they were trying to figure that out. Could the city supply the necessary water? And that's a technical question. And Public Works staff and the applicant got to a yes with certain conditions. And you just heard Stephen Pote talk about the peak usage and that peak times and so on and so forth. From my perspective, that's a technical, can this happen? If we got to no on that question, I suspect we wouldn't be here, but we got to yes. So now what we have before us is a policy question. And the policy question is, this commission has discussed the other effects of water usage, the opportunity cost. You have from the engineering staff, what does this mean in terms of water usage? What's the equivalent of this in terms of residences that will not be built or could be built with this amount of water? And that's the water use application form that engineering completed, where it talks about the water rights comparison, and it talks about the residential equivalent units of 108. So I think you have a technical question that these 3 gentlemen are all prepared to answer for you. And then there's sort of a policy question. That's why they don't get to make the decision. It comes to the Growth Management Commission, and you make that decision. We don't get to decide that, yes, because we can technically supply this water, you can have it. Instead, the board said if the water threshold exceeds the threshold of 15,000 gallons per day, average daily water usage, then it must go to the Growth Management Commission.
Commissioner Perry?
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Dan and Tom, I do have some questions, just so I get some terms in my mind straight. The term used in some of these documents was adaptive reuse, okay? And when I think about that, I think of, okay, there's 51.5 acre feet of water that's coming out of wells in the city, going into the system, and would go to this business, and then it would partially recycle there, but eventually end up in the sewage treatment system for the plant down there. And it would be treated, and that water goes to the holding reservoir. And does any of that go back into the ground for groundwater, for recharge? Do you get any credit with the state engineer on that, or does it all have to go to the two golf courses and anything else that we're watering as processed gray water?
Yeah, Dan Stuckey, Deputy Public Works Director, and Tom can piggyback on my response. But I mean, obviously, the golf course and the prison farms and all those effluent users, some of that is returning right back into the ground. We also get some credits through the state for infiltration from our reservoir and seepage type flows that we get credit for returning back into the basin. Did you want to expand on that? Okay, that covers it.
Okay, so there is some that you would call adaptive reuse that goes back to the primary system there. That was just something I was curious about because we didn't cover it in the growth management plan there. So second question, and well, I'll go back to the well. Do you know anything about the well that's on the site?
The applicant came to us to look into connecting to the city water, so that's what we focused our review on. Typically in that process, we put that responsibility on the applicant to research the well and understand the water rights associated with that well and bring that information to the city. So I don't believe, unless Stephen and Tom have any more information than me, I don't believe we have looked into that on our end.
Okay, third question. Has the city ever required a commercial, industrial, or residential developer to bring water rights into the city and deed them to the city for the city's, amount, like other municipalities do? Because that's kind of, I think we're starting to butt up against that issue in some respects here. Have we ever done that?
So I've been here a little over 4 years. Tom's been here for 18 or 19. That has never been done in our history. I understand. I think it was a policy decision at some point way back that that's how we were going to handle this at the city. So in our time, that has not happened. Okay. And in our recollection, that has not happened.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Lloyd?
This is for staff, probably for Hope. In condition number 3, we say for 3 years that they have to come back, but they're not saying that they would reach capacity for 5. So if we did approve this with the conditions of approval, would we not want to be able to reevaluate this at year 4 and 5 and maybe even year 6?
That's actually a good point. I'm not certain. I think the 3 years was based on the conversation when the Growth Management Commission was talking about the sort of policy level things in the abstract. So I think that would be a good suggestion.
Hope, these conditions of approval seem to be almost in the reverse. And what I'm getting at is if we were not even here, if the car wash went forward with 15,000 gallons a day, and then they found that they needed more water, would not all of this in the reverse be true? If 2 years from now, the applicant comes back and says, look, I'm really doing this many and I need this much water, Is it not, instead of us taking a leap of faith that 10,000 people in Carson City are not going to wash their car in their driveway anymore versus start at this number and then prove to me you need more? It seems like that's a better approach than what we're looking at.
The challenge is the way the code's crafted. The Growth Management Commission has its review. In your review, based on your review, the building permit can be issued. So once that building permit's issued and the use is established, the practice has been, and again, we discussed this a few months ago when the commission was saying, well, what happens when we approve it at X number of gallons? In fact, I think the applicant brought to our attention that we do have a case where someone came in for growth management when the threshold was, it was a car wash, the threshold was 7,500. They came in for permission at 8,000 and in actuality are using 11,000. So below the 15,000, but they're using 11,000. And because the building permit's issued and the use is established, the practice had not been to monitor ongoing that to ensure they were in compliance with the growth management approval. As part of the conversation a few months ago, this came up, and that's why some of these conditions are in here to allow for the monitoring to ensure that they're within the parameters as approved by growth management.
But if we set the parameter too high, we're never going to know what the real answer is.
I understand what you're saying. So you can certainly, if the thinking is, I don't know, if you're comfortable with, say, 25,000 or something at year 3, although the applicant's already advised that that wouldn't be acceptable to him because of his financing situation. If the commission feels like you'll be okay to get there with certain triggers being met, we can certainly look at a condition like that. But I hear what you're saying. You're saying, well, it's sounding like, well, why can't we go with a lower number and have them prove they need the
No,
additional?
The applicant is asking for a leap of faith on our side. And I would like to reverse that and ask for a leap of faith on his side. I believe his testimonials and I believe his acumen in running this business. But I would like to be able to be shown that this water is actually necessary, as opposed to I want to use this to make my application to the bank look good so I can get a loan.
I understand.
And that's because that like Commissioner Perry said, 51 acre feet is a lot of water. And if you had to buy it in Reno, it's even a lot more water. It'd choke a horse if you had to buy 51 acres for Truckee Meadows.
So I guess I would suggest to the commission, if you're struggling, identify what are those things about this application that you would tend to say yes to. For example, they provided a graphic in their presentation on how many employees they would have. If that's something that's persuasive to you and you want to see evidence that they've actually created those jobs. Is it something like you want evidence that they are indeed capturing that, 5.8?
If I was the planning commission, that would be more suitable to me. But really, all we're talking about, like I said at the beginning, is water.
Right, so you have to look at what are the other effects of the water usage. You have your report from engineering that tells you it's the water right comparison, it's the water equivalent residential customers, so you know what that is. So what do you need to hear, I guess, from the applicant to get to yes? And if you haven't heard it, you haven't heard it. But I guess that's the only thing I can think of if you identified certain things that you feel like would be necessary looking at 1812-070 to get to yes, and what are those things, milestones, if you will, that they would have to identify, and short of actually reaching those milestones, they would not be allowed to have that water.
Okay. Any other comments? Commissioner Lloyd?
I hope just for clarification, like let's say we do approve this. What happens next?
They get a building permit and everything is administrative. There are no public meetings after that.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I take that back. I do have in the conditions of approval, the reviews. So it would come back to the Growth Management Commission for the verification that they're within the parameters of the approval.
But it would not go to the planning commission.
No, it would only go to the Growth Management Commission.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Yes, sir.
On condition 3, it does say for 3 years, but we were talking the 5-year time frame, so I would recommend we would change that. And just to reiterate what Hope said, I keep rereading these and I'm trying to figure out which one I would deny this over. And I personally don't see it. So then I gotta defer to staff, which is about the touchy-feely health, welfare, safety, quality, create quality of life, quality jobs, and promote recreation and tourism. And I just have to say, it sounds like this person is gonna meet some of those by fixing a blighted area, providing some jobs for kids. And quite honestly, if we wanna make a vote, I'll make a motion in the approval side of this.
Commissioner Eswine, you've been quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm just going to reiterate what I've said before. We're in a multi-year drought, and I think that 51 acre-feet of water is an irresponsible use of the water that's available to the city.
Okay. Any further discussion? Commissioner Perry?
Thank you. Before I even hit the button,
Yeah, well, I saw you reaching.
it's been some really good points here tonight on different things. Mine are really based on the amount of water right and what it is for the growth of the city, and that's really what we focused in the growth management plan. So to me, this one, and I don't think that this committee the commission has the ability to do it, and I don't know if it's possible to do. It's probably something more that the commissioners would have to do, but I wouldn't have a problem with this at all if, the 15,000 gallons a day came from the city, that's 17 acre feet, and the applicant went and acquired 34 and a half acre feet and deeded it to the city, because that would make the city flush with this. It would, and that's a different process altogether, but it would be one way of getting there. And I have no idea what the cost of that would be in this basin. It is a fully appropriated basin, but you can buy water rights from people and then abrogate them in the basin under the state engineer and deed them to the city. That's exactly what's done in Reno and Vegas and bigger cities. So I just wanted to get that out on the table there as an option, a possible option for the future, even beyond this one, because we may have somebody that comes in and says, well, I want to build this and I want to use 500 acre feet of your water, and or the other 5 car washes come back and say, well, gee, the city's grown. We're getting more business too, and we now need to go above our 15,000 acre feet, and they'll be back here in front of this Growth Management Commission asking for more water. So I'm trying to see, how do we deal with this going into the future, as well as dealing with you fairly, because I think you guys have a great project here, and I like Chairman Borders believe that everything that you said is true, and that you run a good business. So thanks.
Yes.
Thank you for indulging me. Michael Cabrera for the record. First of all, I just wanted to say that we would be okay with the longer chain, so to speak, of 5 or 6 years and coming back to this body for, review over the years. And in terms of the wells, I mean, if we could even add or craft some sort of condition that the applicant would continue to work with staff going forward to do that research on the well, and to the extent that there are any water rights there, that we would deed them back to the city, if something like that would be worth entertaining.
Well, probably so, but I have a real difficulty trying to re-engineer something right here on the fly. We've all talked about some really good ideas, and I just, I just think right now we're kind of in a flux. I'm not sure, we can take a vote and find out, but I'm not sure how this is gonna turn out. But,
I have a question.
I understand what you're saying, and you're trying to be cooperative, and I agree with that, and I agree with what Commissioner Perry said, that would solve a big problem, but I don't know, you can't do that tonight, and those kinds of things. So, Commissioner, help me out.
Well, I have a question that's more for our district attorney.
All right.
Is, because sometimes, I've seen some really weird
Is your
things.
mic on?
Yeah.
Move it
Yeah.
closer.
Okay, my question is if an allocation for water is given to a property, is it given to a property, a use, or an individual? My question is because is the allocation somewhat transferable? So let's say that he only uses 15,000 gallons of his allocation and decides that, yeah, he wants to sell the remaining amount. Can that be done?
That's a great question.
See, we all need more time, don't we?
And I can't tell you the answer off the top of my head. I would need a few minutes to look at that. If you wanted to take a few minutes break, I can look into that. Hope, I also wanted to double check with you. Do you know the answer off the top of your head?
I think what's happening is we're doing a lot of brainstorming, and it's really hard to consult with the applicant on the fly. But I think what we're talking about is some of those milestones. For example, I just asked Mr. Cabrera if at the 5-year mark we found they were using less water, could the delta be returned to the city, which I think is what you were proposing. And Commissioner Perry's talking about, oh, well, could they dedicate acre feet, that we don't even know if they have the acre feet. I just feel like there's a lot there, except for Commissioner Wiggins. And I think we have to just hear from the commissioners and see where they are. But the answer is, right now, we're trying to understand where the commissioners are, and we need to understand where the applicant is with these ideas that the commissioners are bringing up, because they may bring up ideas that the applicant won't agree to.
Commissioner Preston? Oh, okay. Well, right now, I will tell you that I like the idea of the business. I like the idea of fixing up the blighted areas and hiring people. I don't like 46,000 gallons a day. And so from that standpoint, now if there's a way to fix that, I'm all in favor of finding ways to fix it. But I don't feel like personally I can go with that number, which is 51 acre feet of our water, as precious as it is. Even if it's for a good cause. And it has nothing to do with your client and what he says he can do. I believe him. But I just can't get my arms wrapped around that much water. I'm sorry. And if there's a way to increment that, I would be more than happy to try and find a way to do that. So.
Well, if I could just respond to Commissioner Preston's question earlier about whether the water rights would return to the city or if they could be transferable. I mean, that could be a condition as well that you could incorporate, that we may not transfer those water rights to another future non-car wash use. I mean, there's ways to get there that, it doesn't have to be existing law, I guess.
Well, my concern is trying to do it tonight versus, if we have to call a vote for this and they turn it down, or we approve staff's recommendation, I don't necessarily want to do that. If there's still some way to make this possibly work. I just wanted you to understand where I'm sitting right now, so. And if the rest of the commissioners like to give you an idea, that's fine with me too. I know where Commissioner Eswine stands. Any comments, anybody? Mr. Preston.
I have to say at this time, I have to parrot what you're saying. I mean, this is a heck of a lot of water in this basin, and it's a big concern. And so, I parrot everything you say. I'd love to have this business here. I think it'll be wonderful as far as in the redevelopment area, as far as hiring people. I think you'll be very successful. But 46,000 gallons a day is just really difficult for us to go ahead and allocate to a specific business. I mean, that's how I feel, so.
So if I may, Michael Cabrera for the record, we would like to continue to work with you all and staff on this. So if you would entertain a continuance to the next hearing so we could have more time to try to work through these things, look at the well, see if there would be additional water rights that we could deed back or figure out a way to get to a yes for you.
Mr. Chair, could we hear from the two commissioners we haven't heard from yet before there's any continuation, so the
Okay.
staff's clear on where the commission is?
Okay. Commissioner Kilgore, you're next.
It's more than double what I think is allocatable in this circumstance. Somewhere in that number, it's astronomical. It's far too much, in my opinion.
Okay. And who else are we missing? Commissioner
Sienna?
Perry or Commissioner Lloyd?
So I would say that I lean towards this is too much water to be giving up in Carson City for this use. Now, I definitely, I've written down some things here about what we've talked about, and I think that there's definitely ways staff can get there with you guys. And I love Commissioner Perry's idea of looking at what could be possible there. I think that's a good idea moving forward for more than just this situation.
Commissioner Perry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I guess, in my mind, as one of the 7 commissioners here, we either take a vote on this tonight, and whatever the outcome is what your answer is going to be from this body. Or as you said, the other option is to stay it and see what kind of I'm just going to use the term water right, because that's really, it's the bucket of water that the municipality has. And if you can make it that much bigger to cover your project, then I think it's more palatable. It certainly would be to me, because that's all it really comes down to is that. So, I mean, it seems to me like there's 2 options here. And I think really the question is, which one do you want?
Michael Cabrera for the record, I think our preference would be to continue to work to get to a, conditions of approval or see what we can do to make this more palatable for you all first, before we'd have to go up to the Board of Supervisors, just to, make sure that we've done completely all of our due diligence as much as we can to make sure that this is a fully fleshed out proposal to you all. But, we are trying to act in good faith. We're bringing you, what we anticipate our numbers to actually be. We think that this is a good policy decision because it ultimately saves water. A lot of other places are banning home washes altogether, and this is, obviously that's not something that's going to happen in a place like Nevada, but excuse me, my throat is so dry. But, so ultimately we think that this is a good thing and we want to get there with you. So we would be happy to continue to work with staff. We'd be happy to do that research and come back to you and have a full understanding of what the situation is with the well and see if there's anything that we could do to make this easier to swallow.
And sir, I hope you realize that we're trying to do the same thing in good faith. We're not, there's no agenda here. It's just, we're not anti-car wash. I think we're just pro-water. And as ruby as we may be in this little town, we're gonna figure out how to get the most out of our water. And if you can find a way to help us do that, you're gonna be even more welcome in Carson City. So I'm getting the impression that we want to continue this. Yeah. Can somebody give you a motion to continue this to our next meeting? Thank you, Commissioner Wiggins. Is there a second?
Well, second.
Second by Commissioner Lloyd. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take about 5 minutes. Thank you guys so much. Ladies and gentlemen, if you please take your seats. I'd like to reconvene this. Well, we didn't adjourn, did we?
No.
All right. Can I have a motion to adjourn? I'm sorry, before I do that, the public is invited at this time to comment on and discuss any topic that is relevant to or within the authority of the Growth Management Commission, including any matter that is not specifically included on the agenda as an action item. No action can be taken on the matter raised under this item on the agenda. And I also know that our Mr. Reese wants to make a comment, and I think it's appropriate to keep it in the growth management.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So I wanted to address Commissioner Preston's question to me earlier. CCMC Section 18.12.090 does deal with what happens to the entitlement once it's granted. And to be clear, if the applicant were to be granted the 46,000 gallons per day, that would be an entitlement, not a transfer of water rights. The city wouldn't be giving them the city's water rights. It would just be giving them the authorization to use that amount of water. The entitlement to use that amount of water runs with the land. So it would pass from owner to owner to owner of that land. There is a provision for the entitlement to be administratively transferred. That process does not come back before the board. It's an administrative process, but the requirements to transfer it are very, very narrow. So unless the answer is that unless the commission were to place conditions on the allocation, that it would be revisited at some point in the future, that any allocation that was granted would then run with the land.
Are there any other comments before I ask for a motion to adjourn?
I just have a question about that real quick. Does
All
that
right.
mean that the value of that land would be intrinsically tied to the water rights that would be acquainted for it?
If I understood your question, your
So
question
if you
question
allocate
is
the water to that land, does that increase? I mean, that could substantially increase the value of that land. Is that correct?
I'm not entirely sure. Unfortunately, I'm not an expert in the real estate values, so I couldn't tell you whether it would definitively increase the value of the land.
Would that
However,
I'm sorry.
however, your point is your point could be correct.
And so I guess then question is there any businesses that are allocated that amount of water?
No.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Are there any other comments from the public on growth management? Okay. Commissioner Kilgore, are you going to make a motion to adjourn the growth management?
A motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Eswine. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That meeting is adjourned. Now I'd like to call the Planning Commission meeting to order. Call the roll, please.
Chair Borders,
Present.
Vice Chair Wiggins, Commissioner Eswine, Commissioner Kilgore, Commissioner Lloyd, Commissioner Preston, Commissioner Perry. A quorum's present.
Thank you. Members of the public are invited at this time to address the commission on comments on it and comment on any matter that is relevant to or within the authority of the Planning Commission, including any matter that is not specifically included on the agenda as an action item. Is there anyone that would like to make a public comment at this time? Seeing none, the next item is for possible action is the approval of the minutes of July 28th, 2021. Are there any additions or corrections or comments to the minutes? Can I have a motion to approve the minutes, please?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes
All right.
of July 28th.
All right. A motion is made by Commissioner Eswine and seconded by
Second.
Commissioner Wiggins. All right. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
And I abstain.
Yes, and one abstention, I'm sorry. Commissioner Lloyd was not present. MPA 2021-0257 and ZA 2021-0256. Discussion and possible action regarding a proposed resolution recommending to the Carson City Board of Supervisors approval of a proposed master plan amendment to change the master plan designation from industrial to low density residential for a 1 acre lot parcel located at 1449 South Sutro Terrace, APN 008-68301, and the ZA 2021-0256, discussion and possible action regarding the recommendation to the Carson City Board of Supervisors concerning a proposed ordinance amending the zoning map to change the zoning from limited industrial to single-family 1 acre for a 1 acre parcel located at 1449 South Sutro Terrace, APN 008-683-01. Heather.
Thank you. Heather Ferris for the record. The subject property is 1 acre in size and located on the south side of South Sutro Terrace, approximately 1/4 mile west of Gonai Road. The site is currently developed with a single-family residence. The master plan designation for the subject parcel is industrial. In the 1970s, the parcel was rezoned several times from residential 1 acre in 1975 to general industrial and ultimately to limited industrial in 1979. In 1979, the then property owners also began construction of their residence, which at the time was an allowed use in the limited industrial zoning district. However, under today's zoning regulations, a residential use is considered a non-conforming use. The current property owner is in the process of selling the property and is requesting an amendment to the master plan and zoning maps to reflect the actual existing use. The proposed master plan is low-density residential, and the proposed zoning district is single-family 1 acre. Both are consistent with the properties immediately to the west and northwest of the subject property. The Board of Supervisors is authorized to approve both a master plan amendment and zoning map amendment after receiving recommendation from the Planning Commission. Staff was able to make all findings in the affirmative and is recommending approval of both the master plan map amendment as well as the zoning map amendment. I've kept this short, but I'm happy to answer any questions or go over any of the findings if the commission wishes. The applicant, Sharon Wenslaff, is here and may wish to address the commission as well.
Okay. Are there any questions for staff? Okay. You say the applicant is here? And
Yes, she is.
They want to comment?
She may.
All right. Would you like to make a comment? You have a beautiful home, by the way. I drove by. Please come sit down and identify yourself.
Okay.
State your name for the record.
Yep. I am Sharon Wensloff, lived on this property 20 years, and my husband and I want to downsize. We were in the process. We sold the home, and we purchased something else. Then suddenly he passed away, which really complicated this. And then the zoning thing had come up right before he died. And our buyers eventually had to drop out because every month they had to renew their loan and pay a large fee if they wanted to retain that interest rate. This was news to me that this happens. Okay, and then the property we bought, those people moved to Utah and they were paying 2 mortgages trying to help me out so I could move into it. And they finally had to quit doing that, and I would have done the same thing. So I've been struggling with this, so I can't really sell the place. until this gets settled, and it's taking like, what, 8, 9 months, which just seems very cruel to me. I had nothing to do with these different zoning things. It happened long ago, and I wish you guys had a variance so you could speed up when it's something weird like this. So that's all I'm asking, is to let it get zoned to residential. It's been a house with 4 different owners for 40-some years, I guess. And now this popped up, which was really sad. That's all I got.
Thank you.
But I'll answer any questions.
Any questions for the applicants? Yes.
I have a question for staff, Commissioner Wiggins, for the record. So did this come up under title and they couldn't sell the house? I mean, why is this here, I guess?
So I'm not familiar with exactly what the transaction was between the two parties, the seller and the buyer. My understanding is that based on what the applicant has explained to staff, that they were unable to obtain their mortgage without having the zoning map amendment and master plan correct for a single-family residential use, because with it being a non-conforming use, you run into issues with whether or not it can be built if the home was destroyed in a fire.
Okay. All right, that makes sense. So should we blame the mortgage company or staff? Okay.
Everyone. No.
Thanks.
Well, I apologize for taking so long, but maybe we can get it moving tonight.
That would be wonderful.
Any further discussion? Mr. Eswine, are you ready for a motion? All right.
I'm ready to make a motion, but before I do that, I would like to just chastise the city for letting this go on for so long. It just seems like it was an inappropriate use from the very beginning. And nobody here present had anything to do with it. I understand that, but I will make my motion.
Mr. Chair, if I may just briefly, because I feel like a lot of people have looked at the staff, in fairness, and I feel like I have to publicly say this. When this property went on the market and the staff observed the situation that we had industrial zoning, industrial master plan, and a single-family residential, the first thing we did was research this to determine if there was a mistake. We found there was not a mistake. It was quite deliberate in the 70s that the property owner at that time wanted it zoned industrial, even though it was residential. And in fact, there was a lawsuit that the city was not a party to, and it was very clear. So not the current property owner, but past property owners quite deliberately kept the zoning in place and knew they had a residential use, and staff looked for a mistake, not finding one. We asked the I think it was the listing agent to follow this pathway. Thank you.
But we did go through a master plan amendment process in 2006 when this could have been corrected. Now, I will make a motion. I move to adopt resolution number 2021-PC-R-2. And should I make a second motion? Can we?
How about a second first?
I'll second.
All right. Seconded by Commissioner Lloyd. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Now you may go ahead.
Okay. I move to recommend to the Board of Supervisors approval of the zoning map amendment ZA-2021-0256 as presented.
Is it seconded by Commissioner Terry? Preston. I knew I was going to do it once tonight. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Ma'am, we did our part.
Okay.
Good luck.
But now, just because you guys say, okay, it still has to go to 2 more meetings, and they're both a month and a month.
Okay. I understand that, but we did our part.
Thank you very much.
I apologize profusely for what you've been put through for this. This is unacceptable by all means. Absolutely unacceptable. It's absolutely the most unbelievable thing. It's not even real. It has to be real, in fact, for it to be true. It's crazy. I'm so sorry this has happened to you.
And it's not over yet.
No, it's not. Yeah, good luck. It's almost over. I assure you, justice will be served.
Appreciate it so much.
Okay, item 13C, LU 2021-0217 for possible action. Discussion and possible action regarding a special use permit for alternative compliance to the downtown mixed use standards for a property zoned downtown mixed use and located at 217 South Curry Street, APN 003-112-04. Oh,
Thank you, Mr.
you're
Chair.
back.
Perhaps a less controversial item?
Yeah, right.
The subject property is known as Mercury Cleaners and has historically been a dry cleaning business. Through an agreement with NDEP, the property owner has proposed to remove a majority of the building to accommodate groundwater cleanup operations. This will be a 3 to 5 year project. As the property is zoned downtown mixed use, it's subject to the design standards in Division 6 of the development standards. As an alternative to meeting those standards, the applicant proposes to erect a large decorative banner along the Curry Street frontage to create an aesthetic interest and to screen the work site. This is exactly what occurred right across the street from the site, you may recall, when they were building that property at the corner of Curry and Proctor Street. They had a decorative banner and they had photography contests and things like that on there. Per CCMC 1807, the Planning Commission is authorized to approve a special use permit to allow for the alternative compliance with the downtown mixed-use standards. Staff has reviewed the required findings and made them in the affirmative, subject to conditions of approval as noted in the staff report. I am happy to go more in depth on this, but I think this is an unusual case. And it's in everyone's interest to have this groundwater cleaned up, but we certainly don't want a construction site right there next to, our new Curry Street project. So the banner will be an opportunity to have historic information and artistic information that would be of interest to the downtown, visitors and residents, while allowing NDEP and the property owner to get the site cleaned up. Scott Smell with NDEP is present, and I'm happy to go more in depth or answer questions.
Okay. Questions for staff? Applicant? Who technically is the applicant?
Our Public Works Director is co-sponsoring this application with NDEP. The property owner has signed the application.
Okay, all right, thank you. The conditions of approval, of which there are 15, are they acceptable?
This is Scott Smale. I'm with the Nevada Division of Environmental Protection. We have read the staff report and the conditions for approval are acceptable.
Okay. Are there any questions for the applicant? Go ahead. Commissioner Preston.
I'm kind of confused on this because my understanding is that this is not just one building, it's actually two buildings? Because you talk about that there's two buildings, one building, but I understand that there's like a historical alley in the middle of the two. So can you let us know a little bit about that and if SHPO's involved and that type of thing?
Certainly. So this is one parcel number, but there are two freestanding structures with an enclosed alley. The enclosed alley is just plastic sheeting. The construction of the Mercury Cleaners building itself is a little bit unusual in that there was a brick building that was the original structure at the site and which the cleaners operated out of. And then in the 50s, that was extended with cinder block, and that's what you see there in the picture. We are proposing to remove portions of the cinder block and that original residence and where the cleaners was. But there is another freestanding structure that fronts along Carson Street that is currently leased out to a hairdresser and I think a lobbying business, and that structure won't be impacted or altered or changed as part of this process.
Mr. Chair, if I can add, the applicant has prepared an architectural inventory report that includes a lot of photographs of the building, including that alley. I have a copy of it if you want to see the pictures. It's pretty cool. But yeah, and they did that report at the request of SHPO. So they have been coordinating with the State Historic Preservation Office and with the city. And the city is in possession of this report that does include a narrative of the building as well as maps and photographs of the building.
Mr. Lloyd?
I just, Commissioner Lloyd, for the record, I just have a comment and my opinion, but I would like to see historical information about that site on the banner. I think that murals are cool, but I think that that would be something that would provide to the educational nature of people walking around downtown.
That's certainly something we can take into consideration as part of the condition of the approval. We will be working with various agencies on the content and, format of that banner. One of the things we do want to be careful about is not bringing undue attention to environmental cleanup, but, neutral aspects about mercury cleaners and the history of mercury cleaners might be appropriate and might be desirable.
Might be easier if it was Apollo cleaners. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Commissioner.
I have one other question. Is this banner only going to be on the frontage of Curry Street, or is it also going to be along the side for the northern owner, which is also a parking area?
The wall along the northern, I'm sorry, I was wrong, the southern area is the wall remaining. Staff's recommendation is only along Curry Street
How
because
is that going to affect that business owner next door?
next to the parking area.
Yeah, it's their parking area.
It will have a chain link fence to secure the building, but the staff was primarily concerned with the frontage along Curry Street as opposed to that side.
And this is Scott Smale, NDEP. It is our intention not to leave open visibility along that line so that anybody walking there can see into the kind of remediation area. So it will be with privacy slats. It won't just be open chain link fencing.
Okay.
Commissioner Perry?
Thank you, Chairman. So I'm all for this, but I just had to get some comments in, right? So when I worked downtown for many years, I walked by that building, right? And it was always vacant and it always had this aura about it. And there was sometimes when I thought I saw spirits in it. And the fact that it has a alleyway that has been bricked in makes me think of the Edgar Allan Poe poem, A Cask of Amontillado, if you ever have read that. It should be very interesting. I know that's not relevant to this, but it's an interesting piece of property with a long history.
We've kept you from your dinner, haven't we?
I have another question.
Is there any other questions for the applicant?
I have one more.
One more?
Just because.
All right. Commissioner Preston, go ahead.
Okay, the other question I have for you is, right now they are in the process, the city is mitigating and doing all the upgrades on Curry Street, all the way from Musser Street down to Fifth. How is this going to coordinate with that?
This is Scott Smale, NDEP. We were hoping to do our work before that Curry Street improvement project, but the timing did not work out in our favor. We have been coordinating with Darren Anderson, Jeff Freeman, the building or the Public Works Department to see if there's any efficiencies that we can achieve through our projects. But it looks like at this point, the Curry Street improvement will be wrapped up, and we will just have to take those improvements into account when we are performing our activities. One of the conditions of approval is, extensive photographic evidence of conditions as they are after the improvements have been made, and then meeting those and not causing any significant degradation or damage. So we're just going to work that into our plans.
Any further questions? All right. Commissioner Perry.
Are you ready for a motion?
Yes, I am.
Okay. I move to approve LU 2021.
Oh, wait a minute,
Oh,
wait a
sorry.
minute. Public comment.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. I apologize. Make sure you have a green light and identify yourself.
My name is David Shriver. I am the adjacent property owner and also a local business person. I've owned that particular property for 16 years now, and I've been working through the cleanup for a decade maybe. I am not totally in favor of this. I understand the reasoning behind it. I understand the plumes. I am somebody who would like to see our downtown corridor vibrant and cleaned up. I know this has been kind of a thorn in the side of Scott and NDEP for quite a while now. I guess my immediate knee-jerk reaction is, have we done everything we can before we affect my building for the next 5 years? Having a chain link fence next to my building and the idea of doing environmental cleanup makes it difficult for loans. It makes it difficult I don't see, even if we put a 6-foot fence up, the building's taller than that, you're never gonna break the sight line. We know you're not gonna break the sight line, especially from my side. That's my pickup truck right back there. So I just felt I should comment on this. I've worked with Scott. I know his intentions are good. I like to think that they have done everything they possibly could before they put a long-term monetary and visual effect on my building. I spend a lot of time and money trying to clean it up, make it look good, because I am 1865, and one of my concerns is groundwater, because I do have a basement, and I am a rubble and unfired brick structure. So vibration, long-term effects. The Main Street project, when they did that, affected my doors. They don't open, I had to readjust doors. Buildings shift, they move. I do have concerns, though. I feel like they've been pretty forthcoming and talking to me about things and keeping me informed. I just wish there was another way we could do this. Put whatever they're gonna do, would be nice if they put it across the street on the Capitol grounds. I'd like that. But anyway, that's my 2 cents for what it's worth.
All right, well, thank you, and I apologize for not calling you earlier.
That's fine. I would have stood up.
All right.
You wouldn't have gotten away.
Are there any other comments? Yes, ma'am.
Hi. Okay. I'm Jennifer Hildebrand, and I'm currently the property manager of 217 Curry under Remax Premier Properties. And prior to that, I worked for NAI Alliance with Cheryl Evans, and so she oversaw that property for Mitsui for many years. I want to speak to his point and her point regarding the mural. I agree. I love the idea of a mural. I love the idea of the historical background of Mercury Cleaners and Carson. The only thing that I would touch on, and he already mentioned it, as far as the sensitivity, and I don't know if this is offhand to say, but I just want to be sure that everything's done in a positive light, that we don't accidentally target the family in case somebody has a problem with the cleanup. Does that make sense? I just want to keep it in a positive light. And also in light of recent tensions in this nation, especially around race and COVID, the family is Asian descent. So again, I just want extra sensitivity if you're going to highlight the history of this building, making sure we don't target the family. Okay, that's it. Okay. Thanks.
Any other comment? I guess the question would be, if I was the the neighbor, I would have some valid concerns about how you shook my building. And I don't know that you can answer that.
We can't provide any certainty, but we've put in all the conditions in place. We are working with a structural engineer. We have put together a plan for the demolition of the portions of the building that we have to move that involve seismic monitoring, placement of bracing and trusses, doing the demolition entirely or mostly by hand, in order to ensure the integrity of the building around. And we are working with the building department on the review of those plans.
Okay. All right. Now, any other comments?
If I could ask one more question
Yes.
of Scott, Mr. Chairman. Scott, is this cleanup being funded by the State Petroleum Cleanup Fund or by the property owner?
It is being funded under what we call SB 89. That was a Senate bill from a couple sessions ago that allow us to use the petroleum fund money for petrochemical cleanups like PCE sites. Dry cleaners are, not high value businesses, so that has been a historic difficulty in the state, that there are environmental issues associated with dry cleaners, and they normally don't have the funds to entirely do the cleanup themselves. We have been working with the property owners. They've been taking steps to do it, but we've reached a point that we felt we needed to do this using those funds. We did enter into settlement discussions with the property owner because the use of SB 89 funds require us to seek cost recovery. So we do have those elements in place. We have reached that agreement with the property owner. But yes, it will be mostly taxpayer-funded cleanup.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lloyd?
I don't recall seeing it in the paperwork, so I just wanted to confirm or ask, how long do you think the cleanup will take?
The range we provided was 3 to 5 years. That is given the technology that we are currently considering, but there are some elements that we still need to accomplish out at the site in order to get a finalized remediation plan. That 3 to 5 year range is a pretty realistic window. We did do a cleanup at Eagle Gas Station on North Carson Street, and that was about 3 to 5 years. We are hoping to reach a point that we get sufficient cleanup to allow redevelopment there. There are horror stories of environmental projects lasting decades. That is usually if you set your goal for complete cleanup of the groundwater. We have a goal that we are just trying to get sufficient cleanup to be protective of human health and to allow redevelopment, and we feel we can accomplish that in that range.
Any other questions? Commissioner Perry?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion. I move to approve LU 2021-217 based on the findings and subject to the conditions of approval contained in the staff report.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Kilgore. Okay. All right. Motion is made by Commissioner Perry, seconded by Commissioner Kilgore. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. All right. Last but not least, discussion on possible action regarding a recommendation to the Carson City Board of Supervisors concerning a proposed ordinance amending Title 18, Appendix Division 1, Section 1.20 of the Carson City Municipal Code to revise provisions related to curbside pickup for medical marijuana and retail marijuana stores.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hope Sullivan. SB 168 was enacted in the last legislative session. It makes allowances for curbside pickup of cannabis products by the cannabis sales facilities. In our municipal code, a cannabis sale facility is referred to as a medical marijuana dispensary or a marijuana retail store. Per Development Standards 1.20, not more than 2 medical marijuana dispensaries can be located in Carson City. So there's one down by, what's it called? It's not Big Five, Clearview down south, and there's one off Highway 50. So we have 2 dispensaries in the city. On August 5th, the Board of Supervisors considered an ordinance to prohibit curbside pickup. In considering the ordinance, the Board of Supervisors provide direction that would like to consider allowing for curbside pickup, subject to conditions relative to scheduling of the pickup time so as to not cause congestion, prohibiting commercial signage on any curbside-related directional signs or shade structures, and prohibiting curbside pickup locations from being in front of other businesses. Also during the meeting, safety concerns were raised by the district attorney and the sheriff. Based on that input, staff is recommending including a standard where the curbside pickup is utilized. The pickup location has to be subject to security cameras. The proposed ordinance is in your packet. When you consider a text amendment, you're considering 3 required findings of fact. Staff has been able to make those findings in the affirmative, and staff does recommend that the Planning Commission recommend to the Board of Supervisors approval of the ordinance. I'm happy to answer any questions, but essentially during COVID, a lot of us might have done curbside pickup at the grocery store and things like that. This would be similar to that, but for the marijuana dispensaries.
Any questions for staff? I don't know.
Okay, we've got a thing on our deal that talks about ZA 2021-0284, 2 separate APNs at 1147 West College Parkway. It's so, it's just, I don't know. Heather's on something else?
Any questions for staff?
Was there any implication on the supposed downside for not allowing this?
Well, it's interesting at the Board of Supervisors meeting, because what came forward at that meeting was a prohibition. And in discussing the concept of prohibiting curbside pickup, the Board of Supervisors in their discussion said, well, no, we don't want to prohibit it. We think it's business and they're lawful businesses, and these are our concerns: congestion, signage. The district attorney did have concerns about safety, and his letter was read into the record. Also, the sheriff had concerns about safety, and so that's why staff has included the cameras. But I think if the question is the downside, the district attorney and the sheriff definitely had concerns. The Board of Supervisors heard those concerns, but still said this is something we do want to entertain. So the conditions that staff has included in the ordinance are consistent with a letter that the board received from, what's it called? Wellness? Sierra Well. And the board said these look like some good suggestions. We also want you to look at congestion, because we don't want it to be that everyone comes right after work and it's just too much. And it needs to be scheduled. And then staff also include the cameras in response to the concerns of the sheriff and the district attorney.
I would like to see number 5. Say an operable security camera. Oh, I got one, but it doesn't work. We just leave it up there. You know, I would, if we're gonna do this, let's make sure it works. And I know that's a nitpick, but I just, yeah. Yeah. All right, are there any further questions for staff? Public comment?
Hello. Hello, Chair Borders and the rest of the Planning Commission of Carson City. I'm Will Adler, and I represent both Sierra Well and Rise dispensaries here today for the Planning Commission number, I don't know what number it is today, but for the curbside delivery issue. This issue was first brought forth at the Board of Supervisors with some community concerns and public concerns. The DA did produce a letter, as well as the sheriff himself came and had some personal notes and some testifying on it. And sort of the recommendation before you is the agreement from the industry and sort of understanding of the concerns with curbside delivery. A quick history of curbside delivery. All marijuana sales had to be within the store and under surveillance, under security cameras. We do check IDs beforehand. You have to be 21 to get in. When COVID happened, there was a lot of confusion in the state as a whole with all businesses. There was essential and non-essential businesses, and marijuana was kind of neither and both at once. So to rectify this, we had to come up with a new system to do the same verification but keep distance amongst our customers, and that's where curbside delivery came forward. It essentially is the same as a curbside pickup from any other business, but we have to do the steps for marijuana in your car with you, right? So we go out and first verify who's there and if the car is viable to do a purchase. So the first step is actually going in and checking the car, make sure it's only people 21 and older in the car to do the initial thing, because we can't service you if you're not 21. That'll happen under the camera, and as the ordinance says here, will continue to happen. So at the front of the store has forward-facing cameras. We had to do it under those, and to this day, we're going to continue doing it in this ordinance. And then we will then confirm that person is who they are, confirm what they've ordered is in the bag, and then we will give them the amount, come out, take the money, go into the store, get change, and then come out with the product in the change to the customer. Because again, we were a cash-only business, and cash transitions and transfers became very difficult with COVID as well. So we had to figure that all out as well. So this process is something we had to develop and go through. It got verified in this bill later in Senate Bill 168. And then Carson City actually took a good process here, I think, with the ordinance, because we want to identify what is curbside in our ordinance, because it was an unknown and a non-existent thing when we first established Carson City's ordinance. And we do have special use permits to identify our parking lots, anything about them, but it doesn't acknowledge this because it didn't exist before. So I think this is actually a pretty proactive approach Carson's taking to identify, yes, curbside, but what they want curbside to be, because it is so new. But yeah, I think the terms before you are appropriate. The stores do everything sort of acknowledged on it, and we've already established some of the major complaints were the advertisement and the shade structures we're using to shade our staffs outside to provide the curbside services were a little colorful. They did have the store's logos on it, and that was of concern to some of the community members. So we did make those plain and white now. And then the signage and the curbside locations were of concern. So as you see there, it says that they must be on camera and they can't be anywhere other than the store frontage in front of the store. Formerly, Sierra Well had 3 spots facing Highway 50 and a couple spots sort of heading towards Sunrise Motors there, right? They've isolated down to the 5 spots that immediately touch the front of the store and are under 2 cameras. Rise has done the same, where it's just the 4 spots immediately in front of the store that are their spots and touching sort of their curb to keep it to curbside. The additional requirements were the online booking or booking of times. You order online with a time slot currently today, and we sort of have apps that do that and tell you when you're supposed to come in or not. It works and it doesn't. People come in when they're supposed to or they don't. But we do try and do that to do houred windows to keep our traffic down, our quarters down. So we would like to say today that we're trying to comply with all these things as already ahead of time to try and meet the board halfway there, and that we think these terms work well, and that we look forward to continuing doing any curbside services in Carson. And if you have any questions on it, I'd be glad to answer anything about it. Thank you.
Thanks. Great. All right. Any further public comment? Since there's no further public. All right. Discussion, motion? Oh.
Mr. Chairman, I had just a couple questions,
Okay.
if I could. So this is a proposed change to the existing Carson City Municipal Code. right? This amends the code and adds this language in here that is in bold. Is that correct?
Correct.
And by doing that, does this trigger a review of the special use permit for a cannabis facility? Or does it just add to the code and here's the new rules?
No, this creates a new rule. First of all, it will be an ordinance. And then what will happen is the two dispensaries, if they want to avail themselves of these provisions, they would come in for an amendment to their special use permit.
Okay, and they would come into
The
what?
planning commission.
The
And it would
planning
be
commission.
amendment to the special use permit, and you would review the 7 required findings of fact.
Okay, so it would be in the form, I'm trying to vision of what's coming if we pass this, right? And that is, okay, we want to designate these parking spots as the,
And essentially, what I would envision, and Will and I talked about this a little bit, is things like, for example, where are they setting up their parking? Is it going to be a conflict with the adjacent tenant? Is it in a fire lane? Is a signage consistent with the code? So you're looking at the 7 required findings of fact. Is it compatible? The use is fine. You have your baseline use. We're not revisiting whether you can have a use. The question is the curbside pickup going to be, create a detriment to vehicular and pedestrian traffic? Is it going to be compatible with the neighborhood? Is it going to be fumes, noise, vibrations? Those 7 findings you look at every time you look at a special use permit. But you're only looking at that incremental change of adding the curbside pickup. You're not revisiting the dispensary.
okay, thank you. Yep.
Any other questions? Heather, Hope, Fred, Bob, George, the one Scribner error that's in here, do we need to recognize that that's in there also?
Please.
It's paragraph I-1 on the second page at the bottom. For medical marijuana dispensaries and marijuana retail stores, comma, a small a, minimum of 1
Okay.
space. It's a typo fix. It's a Scribner error. But do we have to recognize?
I'll make sure that's corrected for when it goes to the board. What I used as my base document is you amended this code section about a year ago for the signage. And so I used that as my base document, so I just missed that. So I'll
Okay.
make sure that's corrected.
All right. For any further discussion? How about a motion?
Motion.
Commissioner Eswine.
I move to recommend to the Board of Supervisors approval of the ordinance concerning curbside pickup at marijuana facilities.
Okay. There's a second?
Mr. Chair, do we want to include your amendment, operable cameras?
Yeah.
Or does it matter?
Yep.
Yes?
Well,
Including the
it's fine with me either way.
camera.
All right.
I wrote it down. I just wanted to make sure that wasn't missed.
All right. Now is there a second? All right. Mr. Wiggins made the second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Let's see. Staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's funny, we have our new planner, Heather Manzo, here, and I said to her, the meetings don't usually go this long, and she said, this is the 3rd one that's gone long, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
The 3rd biggest lie in the world, right?
So that brings me to Title 18. We need to get Title 18 going again. I've met with Dan Yu, who's the Assistant District Attorney. It's now, what I'm going to do is do a read-through of everything Lee did just for administrative, just to make sure it makes sense, just read it. And then we'll start having formal public hearings. So we will do that before end of year. I'm not committing to where in August, September, possibly October, I'll let you know.
Would this be a public hearing during our regular meeting or a separate meeting?
I'll meet with the chair and we'll figure out
Okay.
based on everything else going on.
All right.
Speaking of everything else going on. For your September meeting, you have like 7 things. You have a special use permit for an unmanned wireless facility. You have a special use permit for one of those temporary sales offices that we have to amend the code so you don't see those for the model homes. A special use permit for a time extension. This is the Bodines up by the Kmart. They need another time extension. A special use permit for the chiller at the old hospital off Fleischman. A special use permit for this composting operation over at the high school. Let's see, the next one is a special use permit for a 5,000 square foot animal processing facility with corral and loading area. And a
That's
special
the
use.
slaughterhouse that got kicked out of Minden, right?
Yeah. Not. Actually, I think they just approved one in Minden, but anyway. And a special use permit for one of those buildings that exceeds 75% of the size of the primary residence. You all also received emails from Christie regarding our November and December meetings. So Wiggins and Kilgore, and Perry, you have not responded, I don't believe. So if you can take a look at that email from Christie Overlay, we're trying to figure out how to avoid the holidays and what's going to work best for the commissioners. So if you can. Yeah, if you don't put your hands on it, just shoot me an email and I'll make sure you get it. Also, what did the board just do? The board the variance that you tied on.
They overturned us.
They did, but they didn't. Actually, in retrospect, what should have happened is we really probably should have continued that till your 7th member was here because we did have time to do that. So we're all a little smarter now about that. But what the board did is they did approve the variance to be 10 feet from that playing field. They also approved the tentative map off College Parkway. You had recommended approval of that tentative map. The board also approved the tentative map off East Nye Lane. And I think those are the actions they took at their last meeting.
I'm going to chime in for a second here. The DA's office, we had some extensive discussions on what a tie vote meant. And so the end result of that was that if it's a tie vote where somebody is absent and there is time left on the application period, then what should happen is it should be brought back to the next meeting where you may have the full amount of the membership here so that the planning commission can take another vote on it. However, if it's a tie vote because someone has abstained, or if it's a tie vote where there is no more time left in the application period before the commission has to take action on it, then it's in effect a denial. And at that point, we would construe it as a denial and the applicant could appeal it to the Board of Supervisors. So that is the nitty-gritty on tie votes.
So what we will do going forward, if we know that somebody needs to abstain or that somebody will be absent, please let us know if you need to abstain or if you're going to be absent. We'll consult with the DA's office in advance to make sure we know exactly how we're handling a tie vote, should that be where we land. The other thing that happened at the board meeting, which will kind of change a little bit how you do things, you're usually really good at articulating why you vote the reason you do, but the board, it didn't come across in the minutes. So I think sometimes we know what you're saying and we understand what your thoughts are and we can kind of articulate that. But when the board reads the minutes, it's not as clear to them why you're voting and what findings you're not making. So on the contentious ones, we'll probably, as a staff, ask each of you to identify what findings you're not making so that the record is just really, really clear.
Okay.
Because that came up. And that's all I have.
Any comments from the commission?
I, for one, am extremely disappointed that was put in over at Silver Oaks.
Okay. The public is invited at this time to comment on and discuss any topic that is relevant to or within the authority of the Planning Commission, including any matter that is not specifically included on the agenda as an action item. No action may be taken on this matter raised under this item of the agenda. Is there any public comment? We don't even have the newspaper reporter anymore. I mean, oh, okay. There a motion to adjourn? All right,
Second.
we're adjourned.